who has listened quietly to the aftermath, the confusion, the self-questing, and the emotional recalibration that follows silence, not dramatic, not exaggerated, just human. In the next sections, we walk through 7 emotional experiences that often surface when you disappear. Some will surprise you, some may challenge what you think you already know, and some may force you to rethink the power of absence altogether. These emotional responses are not flaws or overreactions. They are natural psychological processes that unfold when connection is interrupted without explanation. The first experience is confusion before clarity. Confusion is usually the first emotional response, and it rarely looks dramatic on the outside. From a therapist's perspective, this stage is quiet, internal, and often misunderstood. When you disappear without explanation, the mind does not immediately jump to conclusions. Instead, it pauses. It tries to make sense of the absence using logic, memory, and emotional patterns that once felt stable. This pause is the mind attempting to restore order before emotion fully engages. I have seen this many times in my work. A woman will sit across from me and say something like, "I'm not even angry, I'm just confused." That confusion is not weakness. It is the brain trying to regain balance after something familiar suddenly stops behaving the way it always did. Human connection creates rhythm. Messages, calls, presence, and even small interactions form predictability. When that rhythm ends abruptly, the nervous system notices before the emotions fully catch up. At this stage, clarity has not arrived yet. There is no final story to hold on to. Was it something she said or something she did not say? Was it intentional, temporary, or accidental? The mind searches for missing information because uncertainty feels more threatening than bad news. Silence does not give answers, so the brain fills the space with possibilities. What makes this phase particularly powerful is that it delays emotional resolution. When someone is rejected clearly, the pain is sharp but defined. When someone disappears, the pain is vague, and vague pain lingers. Confusion keeps emotional doors open longer than certainty ever would, not because she wants them open, but because the mind has not been told to close them. In therapy sessions, this confusion often shows up as restlessness, difficulty focusing, rereading old conversations, and remembering moments that did not seem important at the time. The brain is scanning the past, looking for a clue that explains the present. This is not obsession. It is pattern recognition under stress. What is interesting is that during this phase, emotions are often suspended. She may still function normally, still laugh, and still go about her day, but internally there is a quiet hum of unresolved thought. It is not panic yet and not clarity either, just a mental pause where the absence has not fully registered as permanent. This is also the moment where assumptions have not hardened. She has not yet decided what your disappearance means about her, about you, or about the connection. That is why confusion is such a fragile state. It is emotionally neutral but psychologically active. From experience, this stage does not last forever. The mind eventually demands clarity, but before it arrives, confusion does something important. It forces reflection, not because she wants to analyze, but because the silence leaves her no choice. The second experience is the sudden loss of emotional control. This stage is where many men misunderstand what is actually happening. From the outside, it may look like nothing has changed. She might still go to work, post normally, and even seem calm, but internally, something important has shifted. When you disappear, emotional control often weakens before emotions themselves become visible. Emotional control is not about strength. It is about predictability. When a connection feels stable, the mind regulates itself easily. Expectations are clear, and emotional responses stay proportionate. But when that stability vanishes without warning, regulation becomes harder, even for people who are usually grounded. Many women say things like, "I don't like that I'm thinking about this so much. I feel out of control." That loss of control does not mean obsession. It means the emotional system lost a reference point. Your presence, communication, or consistency had become part of how her emotional world stayed organized. When it disappeared, the system had to recalibrate in real time. Emotional control is not lost because you were perfect or irreplaceable. It is lost because sudden absence disrupts expectation. The brain prepares for continuation, not disappearance. When continuation does not happen, emotional responses become harder to predict and manage. During this phase, emotions may come in waves rather than steady feelings. Calm one moment and unsettled the next. This does not mean instability. It means the emotional environment changed without warning. Silence removes feedback, and without feedback, the mind struggles to regulate intensity. Often this shows up as frustration directed inward. She may feel annoyed with herself for caring, wondering, or feeling affected. That internal conflict between I should be fine and I don't feel fine creates emotional tension. Men often assume control is lost because a woman is emotionally dependent. That assumption is wrong. Control is lost because the emotional contract changed without notice. Any human being reacts to sudden withdrawal of connection with instability. Before balance returns, silence is not neutral. It is an emotional stimulus, and it carries psychological weight whether intended or not. The third experience is self-questioning that was not there before. This is the point where the experience becomes deeply personal, not loud and not dramatic, but quietly unsettling. When you disappear, self-questioning often enters the picture, not because she suddenly lacks confidence, but because silence redirects attention inward. Unanswered silence removes external reference points, and when there is no external explanation, the mind turns inward to find one. Women often begin by reviewing themselves rather than blaming the other person. They ask, did I misread things? Was I too open? Did I miss a signal? These questions do not come from self-blame. They come from the brain's need to restore coherence. When something ends without explanation, the mind assumes there must be a reason. When no reason is given, the most available place to search is the self. This is not weakness. It is how humans process relational uncertainty. Many women are surprised by this stage because they think, I don't usually think like this. That realization matters because it shows the self-questioning is a response, not a personality trait. Memory becomes selective here. Conversations are replayed, moments are reinterpreted, and meaning is reassigned. Not because she is stuck, but because the present offers no explanation. Disappearing removes context, and when context disappears, the mind reconstructs it using self-reflection. This stage does not last forever, but it permanently reshapes how the connection is understood. The fourth experience is replaying moments to find meaning. In established relationships, this stage is especially intense. Relationships are built on patterns, routines, emotional signals, and shared understanding. When one person vanishes, the mind retraces the entire relationship, looking for where meaning shifted. People often say, we were talking about next week, or nothing felt off. That disbelief fuels replaying. It is not clinging. It is coherent seeking. The emotional brain wants the story to make sense. Silence forces the mind to become its own narrator. Moments gain new weight. Tone changes, timing, and subtle shifts are examined. Not because they were clearly wrong, but because the ending does not match the buildup. This replaying is not permanent. Eventually, the mind reaches a limit. But before that happens, it reframes the relationship. Meaning is no longer drawn from shared presence, but from reflection. That shift is one of the quiet consequences of disappearing when someone believed they were still building something. The fifth experience is the shift from certainty to uncertainty. Certainty in relationships is often invisible because it feels normal. It lives in routines and assumptions. When you disappear, that certainty collapses quietly but deeply. The emotional framework becomes unstable. People are not questioning love at first. They are adjusting to uncertainty. Thoughts like maybe I misunderstood the connection begin to surface. These thoughts are adaptive. They help the mind prepare for change. Uncertainty impacts emotional safety. It forces the nervous system into alert mode. This is where emotional detachment begins, not by choice, but by protection. Certainty becomes something that existed. In the past, the relationship shifts from lived experience to questioned memory. Silence teaches how fragile emotional assumptions can be. The sixth experience is emotional silence, becoming louder than words. Silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling heavy. Words give the mind something to work with. Silence forces interpretation. Unanswered questions grow louder. The absence becomes more noticeable than presence ever was. Silence does not cool emotions, it concentrates them. Emotional silence forces self-reliance and reshapes meaning. This is often the turning point where emotional distance begins forming, not because she wants it, but because the mind adapts. The seventh experience is awareness of what your absence changed. This stage is quieter but transformative. Reaction gives way to insight. The focus shifts from why he disappeared to what changed within me. Absence highlights what presence once provided.